Hi, I'm your host, Jordash. Back again, talking about the new Joey thing here. Little birdhouse there, but it's another Joey model. It's a lot more incorporated, specifically for use, and specifically for. If you notice between this one and the other version, it's more enclosed, so it's a little bit more aerosol friendly. It's made to be able to house the power supplies. It's there to be able to basically keep everything contained, rather than it's one step closer to the ideal where everything is self-contained within the object itself, rather than have it be all sort of all over the place or discombobulated. It's a lot more consolidated. Or it's supposed to be a lot more consolidated. But it really is just more. It's kind of a bit more plug and play. So how does it work? What's it doing? What is it? That's what tonight's segment is going to be on. And waiting for some pictures to load. There we go. So what do we got going on here? So we went through, I learned how to do from our last segment, Innovative Potential showed you how fast this model can actually be sort of created. It took an hour after about 2 weeks of practice. It took an hour after about 2 weeks of practice, but it was fast enough to be able to get up and get running and have it be able to just sort of like, okay, well now we can put this cup in something that's going to be sort of like at least a little bit protected from the environment. It's not just completely exposed, but it's also going to be able to put this cup in the electrochemical cell in association with the power supply. So right now, this power supply is the one that is sort of like, it's basically the idea for it. So you get like a switching mode DC power supply, commercially available, whatever you want. It has to be able to hold about like 5 milliamps. So your 5 volt to 2 amp kind of areas. But it's big. So it's about this. So this unit is, while fully engineered, is still about the size of the box. So for a size comparison, this is about 6 by 3 inches, maybe 8 by 3 inches. Box is 6. Oh yeah, the Joey 6 by 6 by 6. So this is about 7 by 3. This is 7 by 3. The box is 6 by 6 by 6. The idea is to get the guts of this thing, or the equivalent of it, into the back 3 inches of the Joey. So basically the front 3 inches is for the front 3 inches is for the electrochemical cell, and the back 3 inches is for the power supply, and we're just gonna, everything from here on out development wise is just getting the hardware. So Innovative Potential kind of splits again into what its capacity is sort of aiming for. There is the hardware specializations, and then there is the use of the hardware specializations. So that's kind of why everything is just sort of like all over the place at Innovative Potential, because we're actually doing two things. We're gearing for this split to happen where, okay, well, here's your engineering people, here are your chemical engineers. Here's all the people who are going to be engineering the hardware and the inputs into the hardware. And then here's the medical side of innovative potential that is now taking the engineered hardware and going and looking at, well, how does this actually relate into a treatment, and how do you get a treatment out of all of this like stuff, right? So that's why it's been so difficult, because it's now, well, all of the treatment people and all of the drug and hardware people are now like forced into innovative potential, and that's sort of the real power here, because it's like, no, if you're a hardware developer, if you're like Medtronic, or if you're Mintronics, or if you're doing like a private engineering thing, or if you're a small engineering group, this is one of those projects that is like, yeah, you're gonna get instant results because we're coming with all of these other like, no, all you gotta do is got this thing and make your own device. Okay, it's like a glucose monitor. How many glucose monitors are out there? There's like tons of glucose monitors. That's what the Joey is. It's one of those types of like really generic based technologies that you're just gonna, bells and whistles from here on out. Same thing goes for the electrochemistry and the other medical applications and sort of drug discovery side of it and treatment applications. This now goes off into the surgical suites, and this now goes off into the veterinary clinics, and this now goes off into sort of the tox research laboratories that I came from. And you have this whole sort of, back and forth interplay about how the drugs are actually applied and how they function in with all the rest of the standards of care. So that's kind of where this is coming from. It's not that. Okay, so I wanted to show you a render of the Joy, but it's just not giving the background here. Okay, anyway, who cares? It's just a rendered picture of the box. So basically what's going on with that is, why wait for the rendered picture of the box when I can just show you the box in action? So part of what's going on here is, I talked a lot about like, okay, so what it is. This is the electrochemical cell. It's a flow through cell, so water's gonna come in the top down this pipe tube from your IV bag, and it's gonna flow through here. It's gonna dead end against the rest of the cathode chamber, and sits there in the bottom like that. You screw it on. Right, and you can play with this however you want, but that's basically the same. That's basically the idea. And so you're ready to go with that. You have to watch. Like with all things, you do have to watch it. It's not like this is too complicated to be foolproof yet. But it's on its way there. So basically, the box fits on the thing. You stick the thing in the box. that's what it is. You put the Joey in the box, and you finish setting it up. You plug it in. You connect the 2 leads into the back of the diaphragm of the box. So if you're paying attention to the last video last week, if you're paying attention to last week's video, we talked about how the box itself is an H shape. It has a diaphragm in it to separate the front end viewing observation electrochemical cell side from the back end, which is just our power supply. And 2 wires go through the wall to just supply the connection back and forth. And then from there, it's all lure lock linkages and little spigots to control spigots and valves, I guess. Yeah, so basically from there, we're working on an aperture to be able to control the flow based on just the unit. So if we can get a flow rate specific to a diameter for this thing, it'll make kind of everyone's life a little bit easier. And so however else you kind of want to like build and play with it, it's there ready to go. That's all you need to know. It's still kind of one of those. It's still a system that gets even simpler because depending on how the electronics shrink, it could be this size, like like it's basically the size of a polka walker kind of thing, where the electronics fit something this size, and there's a small little LED screen and a couple of on and off buttons, and that's it. We're ready to go. Then you can just sort of have it and the electrochemical cell just sort of almost stuck on the pole as is, but it's now in line with the rest of your IV systems, and it's a lot more integrated. So this is sort of like there's a huge miniaturization component to this. Because as you can see, it's like the electrochemical cell is only like 2x3, so there's a lot of sort of dead volume on this box. The box is there to be so large because we have to first sort of learn what the electronics are going to look like. We don't need them to deliver 10. We don't need 10 volts and we don't need 1 amp. So a lot of the features of the commercially available power supply gets really like we're starting with this much and we need like a fraction of this much here. So that's sort of the like huge amount of taking that this thing is going to do. It's just going to implode on itself and shrink itself to the point where it's like it would be almost be like this piece here where it's like an inch by 2 inches in size. And that's the real sort of like when it gets to that point, you know, your hardware is going to follow, like the hardware is going to follow the rest of the patent development. But basically you're going to end up with a unit that can now be included in other parts of hardware. So it's like when this part gets shrunk more, that's when you're at the probe, that's when you're at the root, that's when you're at the auto sampler electronics wise, because all of the power supply stuff is coming from the robotic side of it. So that's kind of the cool part. So when you get like your auto piston going for the hand thing, this is actually grafting downstream from the bulk of the machine. So if you already got the machine, this is like a wired lead that goes downstream from the majority of that work that's already done. So this is really like one of those like expialidocious accelerator type of situations where it's half the war is already over. Already, like you combine this with the laboratory book, and you're back ready to go with the laboratory book. That's sort of that's sort of the ins and outs of it all. So the biggest thing was getting this hardware to the point where it was convenient and easy to use in like at least a veterinary type of setting, and it's there for the most part. It's there. The other Joey, the gray Joey, this one. So this version of the Joey, the original one here, it's basically like this, but we've enclosed the front end, enclosed the back end. You're still only going to have about this much surface area to be able to hide the electronics. But with that said, there's no problem going to market with this. There's no problem going to all of those sort of like trade shows with this. I don't have a problem with a trade show with this. This video itself is a trade show. It's worth more than a trade show itself because it's a new device. And what you can do with the new device is more than sort of what you do with the old devices. Because very quickly people just sort of exhaust what a device can do. If you're really going to exhaust this thing, it's like you have like 300,000 data points to generate just in cell line culture and cell cultures alone. So that's sort of like kind of what you're dealing with here. And it's not terrible. It's just you got to throw the people at it. You got to throw the money at it. The labor, the people who do the labor. Because they got to be able to get the returns that are greater than what they put in. So it's like, well, they got to pick a device. They got to be able to pick their drug, and then they got to shield their drug, and then they got to reactivate the drug later. So their molecule of choice has to be really chosen well. And it's not that it can't be. This thing also makes bleach, so it can, disinfect your water for clean drinking water if you're, into that type of thing. The water processor for camp or something, but those are like all off like ancillary uses. It's not the main vein. I don't know what else to say. It's just sort of like done. It's like it's done, but it's not all done kind of thing. Like it says on the website, what I want or what needs to be done for the Joe for this just unit itself, you have to get it calibrated to the physical size and shape of the new stuff. So if there's any engineering changes to the electrochemical cell, its parameters change the flow rate, like the rate of production of the molecule, so it's going to sort of fluctuate. It's not going to, if you change the shape, you'll change the production outputs, but if you standardize the shape, you standardize the production outputs. And it's more along the lines of, well, what's the standardized shape? This seems to be good enough, but there's a lot of overhead and waste associated with it. But it's good to go. It was good to go in 2010. It was good to go in 2013. It was good to go in 2012. It was good to go in 2017. It's good to go for 15 years, so it's good to go. And that's it. That's sort of the rest of the whole the system. Oh, and hex bolts. If any of the algorithms are picking up the voice modulator or people are paying attention, for some reason hex bolts don't get machined so that the whole length of the hex bolt is actually usable. So anything over an inch, like you'll never get more than maybe an inch worth of. See, this is sort of what this is the biggest. This is my latest biggest gripe, where it's just like these hex bolt things are a pain in the ass, because what the Joey needs is this portion actually threaded. Like it actually needs to be threaded here, and that's just like you make these key bolts. That's what I mean. That's what this version is using right now, key bolts, until you start making I find them. But basically, you need 2.5 to 3 inches worth of threaded hex bolts. The hex screws are there. You can make a fully threaded hex screw, but you can't make a hex bolt. It's like, fuck off. You have no idea. You have no idea how questionable that is in terms of just being able to who's making this stuff. It's like, I understand if you're not ever getting anything threaded and it's just a cheap out, but it's like, just make everything threaded and assemble it. Like, why you gotta have this stupid hex bolt meter that's not even a hex bolt. It's not even a hex bolt. It's not even a bolt anymore. It's fucking useless. Because so you really only have an inch with the spacer on it. So it's like, well, stop being cheap and machine the whole damn thing. Anyway. What we're kind of getting at is it's pretty much almost done. I don't even have to be on here for all that whole length of time. It's really just a relief. It's a bit of a relief. Yeah, a relief. I'd say it's a relief. Just to be able to get to use this thing appropriately in its time span and have its diligence done on it. It's a surprisingly long amount of time when your program gets cut by the government. But in the end, the government doesn't own this anymore. It's kind of what happened there. What I want to do with it, and what I want to take it is something to this picture we had here. Here's our 4-year development plan. It's going to be like a little scarab beetle kind of thing, where it's here's the Joey, here's the unit, here's the little aperture thing, and it's just going to hook on, but it's going to be only it's not going to be that huge box. It's going to be tighter. So what that kind of entails is what has to happen there is just trying to get part of the product engineers on board on how their contributions are going to, one, make their careers, because basically that's how it goes, and then exactly how their career boost is going to get sort of remunerated. how are they going to get what they want from it, kind of thing. So that's part of the show that's going on there. So it's like you have to figure out why you want your name associated with that piece of equipment, and what that's going to mean for your career, before, after, and slightly sideways to the fact. And that slightly sideways to the fact is more of, if you're in robotics, the auto sampler with this thing on it is worth more than the small thing. But if you're in product design, the small thing is worth more than the box. Or rather, the box. It's sort of like, how big of an audience does the box, the IV pole mount reaches a bigger audience than the auto sampler. But the auto sampler is going to be further upstream than the box. You can process more chemicals with the auto sampler than you can with this thing. Like, this thing can process all of it. So it's really a pick and choose kind of game here. Other than that, it's been pretty good. It's been pretty quiet. No complaints. There's the Fusion 360 changed its thing, and I don't really like that, so I gotta find another program. I'm looking at Blender, just to be able to do some stuff. That was a disappointment when they changed. So Fusion 360 changed its free demo version into a 30-day trial version, which is worse. Because I would prefer to have a limited free version and then take my version to a professional for enhancement and stuff like that, because it helps me work out the ideas faster. If I don't have the unit to work out the ideas with, then it's not, then the whole thing becomes not valuable. And that's sort of the difference here, where it's like, well, I have the full suite, I have access to the full suite of equipment for 30 days. I don't need I need 90 days with bare minimum stuff, not 30 days with everything. You know what I mean? And that's just like, well, guess I'm not using your program anymore, dickheads. That's how it's like, that's the wrong business maneuver. You want people, it's like, you want people using your equipment like a school teaches, when you're first taught how to use the equipment, that's where you get your brand loyalty at. So if people learn how to use Photoshop or Fusion 360 or something like that, don't give them the time limited thing. Keep them, because eventually they'll purchase the version more than if they had access to everything. If they want access to more stuff, they'll buy the components for the more stuff, not just saying, well, here's everything for a limited amount of time. It's like, no. It's like, here is a little bit forever, but if you want more and to do more, like if you get better, you pay for more. If you don't, that's sort of the thing here, where it's like their business model is just like fucked up now. So that's part of like one of the grapes. There's a lot of grapes, little mini grapes, but they gotta be said just because posterity or posterity or whatever. So that's everything. Why do you be a short one tonight? So we got the new box, we got the Joey box, we got it up and running. The only thing is to run it through water, give it a test. But we already did that. We already know what the electrochemical cell does. This is just a new outer casing. 6 weeks start to finish with a high holiday, and we had to reprint the. In 6 weeks, I had to learn how to make the 3D shapes, and then we had to order the material. We had to order the filaments through the Maker North shop. So shout out to Maker North for 3D print for their services. So they ordered. It took a bit of time over the holidays. We had to do the modeling and the 3D drafting of this. Renders are up on the website, and within 6 weeks, this whole thing was done and put together, including almost a month, including 2 weeks for delivery. So that really wasn't an issue, but at the same time, it's a good thing that something like this can be really done this quickly when you have the instruction manual. So that's sort of the deal there. What else? That's it. The next little bit is internal housekeeping. We got their constitution basically set up. A whole bunch of it's been a year writing these it's been a year writing these types of like. So it's like here's a list of like things that either help set a business into being a business, or saying this is how we want it to run, or this is how, don't do this because this is the lesson we learned from it. So there's a whole bunch of like little contextual memos and stuff. There's about like a year's worth of them developed. There's about 75 in total. Just bitches, complaints, don't deal with these people. These types of people are not going to be your friends. They're not going to help you. And here's why. Here's what we learned over the course of 15 years. So it's sort of like one of those like knowledge books that you write for yourself, where it's just like, okay, in order to move forward, that's got to get sort of consolidated and put into a set of, just like be made into a book also. And then that becomes the constitution of the business, where it's just like, okay, in association with the licensing agreements that we have between the two companies, this is now how the two companies kind of came to make decisions off of each other based on the fact that it's sort of co-developed up to this point. So it's like, here's the history, here's the unspoken history of like how these two things kind of like talk to each other. As a consolidated resource and learning guide. So that's okay. And so when that's done, I don't know. When that's done, prepare for a vacation, I guess. Make some plans, do something else. There is the next biggest chunk is the next biggest thing is the big chunks, and the big chunks are kind of annoying because everything is like really big, other than the electronics, which I hope that this new contact comes through. A little bit of consolidated electronics, but once the electronics are consolidated, it now becomes this like analytical calibration. So what that means is like, okay, well, we have to make sure that the electronics work with the flow rates, and like basically you're generating a standard operating procedure with this, but the device itself needs to have the standard operating procedure, not the instruction manual. So, like the instruction manual says, congratulations on the purchase of your like new laboratory. This is like congratulations on the purchase of your new device. So the device itself has to get like really specific, you know, turn it on, clean it on, maintenance, what are you going to do with it, how do you wash it, how do you clean it, care and maintenance of the device, hours used, expect to be able to use it for this amount of time without it actually falling apart or without having to replace parts or materials or, you know, breaking down or whatever. So that's one of the things that's sort of coming up. That is the big major project there, where it's like, I don't know how to use it, I don't learn how to use it, just use it for me. It's sort of like the going where like people are idiots, they're lazy idiots. Which makes it like even like makes it tiring. Like you don't ask your surgeon, like if your surgeon behaved this with their scalpels, they'd just be like, everybody would die. Yeah, so third party testing and feedback along with some analytical calibrations would be nice. And those are two big ones that are, well, they're just very large. They take a lot of time, and there's like a lot of like little mini components inside of them, and that's what really kind of annoys me. You know what? I'm gonna add it as a scene. That's the part that really kind of annoys me, because it's like, it's not undoable, but as one person, it's gonna take like, you will be lucky if this SOP manual gets created by this time next year. So that's sort of the like really super frustrating part of it. Oh, I jumped to a blank scene. Whatever. I'm gonna keep talking, and we're going to just put the picture in there that I wanted to share. This is Joey Render. I'm proud of it. I learned a lot out of that one to do. Just skin some stuff, like put like different like things on it, you know. Stuff. Joey 2 project. So I got the Joey renders with the logo on it. Alright, here we go. Alright, I'm ready to see it. There we go, there's some stuff. The Joey, we got the little sort of light bulb there. So with this render, this is basically what we were talking about. It's 3D, but we had converted this into an STL and a F3D file, and then had those sent over to the 3D printer, and then the 3D printer printed them out. We had the electrochemical cell part there already done, already made from the previous Joey, and the rest is just getting the back end to the electronics. And we're, you know, again, like I said, it's you should already be using this in every hospital across the face of the earth. But, you know, 15 years later, we're here. And it's just going rip by rip. That's it. That's where we're at with innovative potential. time. Nah, we don't need to play games, kind of thing. But basically, yep, win and lose, lose and win. This thing is here. This is where it stops. This is what you can do with basically, just self-learned, self-taught for the 3D print, not 3D printing and stuff, but you can do so much more. When you set your mind to it, this gets consolidated, but then we get the consolidation on electronics stuff sort of lined up to be able to go with some of the handheld devices and some of the robotic electronics, and then from there, other people are still screwed until 2038 when I take over the drug scene by creating a bunch of new types of drugs that work only and exclusively with the Joe. There is no exit strategy. It's a monopoly. By the end of this, I own all that information. So that's kind of when we talk about investors and we talk about, we're going to switch over to Innovative Financial right now. Okay. Switching over to Innovative Financial, that's sort of the thing here. It's like people talk about, what's your exit strategy, or how do you do all this other stuff? Like, there is no exit strategy. There is no exit strategy. At the end of the day, all of the information gained, gathered, and controlled by the deployment of that device remains under property of Innovative Potential. If you're in any way, shape, or form selling off your businesses as entrepreneurs, it's like you're just entering the branding war. It's like, well, let's take something someone else does and do exactly the same thing, but in a different city or a different location. So it's like if we set up a pizzeria in Chicago, chances are the exact same pizzeria is going to fly in Detroit, and the exact same pizzeria is going to fly in Miami, and the exact same pizzeria is going to fly in Wyoming, Sheridan, Wyoming. Also in California and wherever else. So it's like, okay, well then, that's what entrepreneurship is. You set up a franchise and you go with it. You set up the supply lines and you go with it, and then that's it. When you're on Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, they're educational shows, but they're not educating properly anymore. They become caricatures of themselves. And it's now just basically like when you buy something, like when you buy a car, when you buy the car, buy a good car and run it into the ground. Learn how to make, manufacture, and replace parts, and that's basically the strategy here. We bought it, and then we just keep it until it expires, and then we sell the information, that is derived from this product after the fact. So by 2039, once all of this patent information is done, all the information that this thing generated over the last 15 years is still our property. That's Innovative Potential. It's like where and why and how does this fail? It's like, well, we proved it doesn't. We're looking at its successes. How many different successes are there? It's like, well, that's what Dreamcatchers is for. Our data acquisition sector. It's like, well, boy, is your face red for not getting in on the ground floor. You've been left behind for 20 years. You gotta go through 20 years worth of university developments and industrial contacts and networks and, screaming hour-long bitch fests to be able to get caught up with battery and pencil lead. That's the fun part there, because it's just like, well, it's a high school experiment that nobody in high school ever figured out. Until 1950, and then nobody figured it out again. So it's one of those things where it's like you're never gonna get your general population is cut off to this level. It's like if you're actual human being listening to this at some point, it's like It's like having Gates, Musk, Bezos, and Zuckerberg all in the same room watching this video, and it's like, oh shit, we can't do that yet because it's still illegal for us to do that yet. So we have to go into international waters or Mexico to be able to do this. I was gonna say Steve Jobs, but untastefully he did die of pancreatic cancer during the development of the original set of this. So that kind of shows you what an apple is worth versus the joy. So that's just a nice little alludement to 2025, when most of the other stuff will be done in this miniaturization process or consolidation for tech hardware consolidation process will kind of field itself over. Will be over with, excuse me. So get all those names in a box in a room, and their lives are still dependent on this stupid fucking machine. At some course point in history, anyway, so if you're in Japan watching, or if you're in Russia watching, or Ukraine, or if you're in Belarus, or if you're in Saudi Arabia, or anywhere on the continent of Africa or South America, you should be in university right now, busting your ass in a PhD program, getting one of these stupid things to work. Yeah, there's the other half. Europe too, anywhere in Europe. So that's basically what the world of innovative potential has been up to. I learned how to 3D model. Whee! What I really want to do is have the, just have the free run of it all. This thing moves so much faster, and it's so throttled, it's not even funny. We'd be running with the Bulls of Barcelona, but we're just like adrift on the ocean. Just current, just pure currents of time right now. Anyway, I think I'll call it there. It's been like way too chill, way too whatever. But that's stuff by innovative potential.